I thank you, Michael and Whitney, for being here today to discuss Jackson County's journey in this world. And I'd really like to start first by talking about the drivers for the changes that you've made to better position the county to deliver digital services. And, you know, I noticed that the county launched a new online portal and mobile app, myJacksonCounty, that gave residents an easy way to pay for things like property taxes, schedule payments, find tax receipts, and more. And so, Whitney, I'm interested, you know, what were the issues and challenges and needs that drove the county to change the business processes used for government service delivery?
Thank you, Otto. A number of things led to the change. One being I was fairly new in the position and the role, and I did have a goal of improving the way we utilize technology to the benefit of our taxpayers and to the services we provide. I was frustrated with the functionality of our previous system, with the searchability of our previous system, with the security of our previous system. We wanted a more mobile-friendly option. We knew that a significant portion of our taxpayers that would utilize the service might not have a home PC anymore. Many people no longer have that home PC. They do all of their work on a handheld device, so we wanted something with a more mobile-friendly option that would serve those taxpayers more efficiently. I know personally I do most of my business on a mobile device, so I thought that, you know, that was what I would like to see for our public. So those were the main things: mobile options, security, searchability. Those were the things that we were struggling with that we thought we could improve upon.
Yeah, Michael, I would imagine there were some, from a technical perspective, there were some difficulties that maybe needed to be addressed to position, again, the county to deal with digital services.
Yeah, Otto. Yeah, so we did have some issues with having to support a lot of these legacy systems within our county, and they were getting to be just very costly, and staffing and maintaining the knowledge of these legacy systems was starting to drift away. As for example, even within our vendors and our vendor support for the legacy systems that drove us toward this tax payment option, there just wasn't a lot of that legacy knowledge within their support base. And so we were, and then basically from a security perspective, we were really struggling in that area to maintain those systems. And like a lot of other government organizations, I'm sure, are facing all over, trying to improve your security posture while trying to maintain systems that are very difficult to secure. So one of the things that we looked for was something that could integrate with, you know, we couldn't replace the entire system from front to back, but we had to replace the system that we felt was the most vulnerable, and being able to find a vendor that can integrate with your legacy technology. A lot of these platforms, a lot of these vendors have these tools and these capabilities of building out these integrations to help modernize that forward-facing piece of it while you're still in the background trying to work to get the rest of it upgraded to a more modernized system. So finding an integrator like that was key for us, and trying to provide that digital service to the citizen, which opens the door for a lot of other. You mentioned our myJacksonCounty. Creating that digital wallet is opening more doors across the county and across other departments for some opportunity to be able to use that as a platform to engage citizens with on a digital level, because they are having to do a lot of that manual paper processing and things like that we're really making an effort here at Jackson County to eliminate and try to go as much more further into that digital space as we can where it makes sense.
Yeah, so you have these needs, and getting sponsorship and funding from program leaders is key to successful projects. So, Whitney, how did you get leadership to, give the buy-in to your approach?
Sure. So as anyone in local government knows, there's a lot of people who have to give the thumbs up before you can move forward on about anything. And so here we had to get that thumbs up from both the legislature and the county executive. That meant spending a lot of time sharing what our current issues and concerns were, laying out our vision for what we could have or do now have in the future, what pay it would be offering. And I think the decision to move forward with a more mobile-friendly option, with a more secure option, was a no-brainer at the point that we took it to those folks. So it wasn't difficult to get buy-in in our case. The fact that it was at no cost to the county certainly made that a much easier sell. When you're not asking for an appropriation, that makes something much easier to sell to the leadership. So we really didn't face a lot of pushback from what I remember when it came to implementing the project.
Yeah, cool. Well, let's talk about solutioning. And specifically, I'd like to start with, what specific benefits did the county pursue and want to achieve, Whitney? And then Michael, if you would follow with what benefits to the county's IT infrastructure, I believe you were talking about achieving as well, then that'll give everybody that full picture of what you were all able to achieve benefit-wise.
Sure. One major benefit we wanted to achieve was to give people easier access to not have to come into our building. We had such long lines, and this was in a pre-COVID world, so we had no idea how much we needed that benefit and how much we have utilized that since then. But we wanted people not to have to come in to pay their taxes to get a receipt. So having that mobile option so that folks who only had a mobile device could still pay their taxes online, still have access to that receipt online. Those were functions we were certainly wanting to improve upon. I think improving upon the search function was important because this has a much smarter search function than what we were utilizing previously. So making an interface that was more user-friendly and that also had that receiving available was really important to us.
And then from an IT perspective, from benefit-wise, we were able to show that we can service the citizens, provide better customer service overall for the citizens when having to interact with the county as far as paying taxes. And when Whitney said, I think I saw a question in there, when we mentioned who paid for this, the fees, the citizens, the fees that are collected during the tax payment portion of this are what is being paid as far as the vendor is concerned. When it came at no cost to the county, it's just a payment processor that paid for that. But the ability to show that we could, through a digital service, provide better customer service to our citizens has opened the door to the adoption of more of that from other areas, both not just externally to citizens, but also internally within our organization. We drove forward on another digital platform that we have. We were able to sell and drive forward on a process, an online process for our legislative approvals, building out a tool and showing the benefit and the value out of making that digital versus the pieces of paper and the countless contracts attached to those papers that had to be transferred from one group to another in order to make the legislative agenda, and then process that out. After that, it opened the door for everybody to see as far as leadership is concerned, which ties back to getting that leadership buy-in. We're showing the benefit and the improvements from doing this by the results of what we've been able to accomplish with that. So having something measurable, I mean, is key. Is saying, going to leadership and saying that we can improve on this process, and here's what we're going to achieve as far as our goals are concerned, and being able to show those as measurable achievements goes a long way in driving that adoption across the organization.
Yeah, and that makes me think, Whitney, the world, we have to support everybody, right? And so there's part of our community that doesn't do traditional banking. They may use cash. They may use, checks, as in the paper kind and so forth. Were you guys able to integrate those sorts of payment options also into this automated world easily? Because ultimately, it's all got to make its way to government.
Yes, we still process massive amounts of cash and checks, obviously. Our mortgage companies, for example, we submit them a pay file with all of the parcels that we know that they are intending to pay, and then they will issue us a check for all of their properties in one. So mortgage companies generally are just handled through pay file. We process checks and cash in-house for anyone who wants to just come pay in person. And then any payments that are mailed in, we process through our bank lockbox. So those are all processed off-site, or most all of them processed off-site. So due to staffing limitations, we're encouraging everyone to pay online who's able, and then we come up with any other option that we might have to limit the number of cash and checks that is processed in-house. But we do still have lots and lots of cash and checks that go through being processed in our office. We do not process large payments in coins, as taxpayers have learned the hard way in the last several years. So wheelbarrows of nickels, we do not currently accept at any of our locations.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, at least transit sometimes has to worry about that, right? Michael, I'm interested in, obviously you have these technologies available to you. You started using those. From your IT organization, the skills that they needed to be able to handle these new technologies so that you could ultimately, obviously, implement, but also maintain over time. Can you describe, how easy was that pickup of those new technologies, et cetera?
Yeah, so, as we go through, government, public sector, I've worked both private and public sector, and sometimes there's different challenges across each one of those, especially in the public sector from a staffing perspective. I don't have a large team, and some of these digital platforms that we're using now are skills that my team, existing team members were picking up as we were starting to head that direction. We were building a lot of in-house software for various departments, and we've shifted that focus over the past few years of getting away from doing that, going to mostly commercial off-the-shelf type of softwares for that to replace some of these legacy, older in-house developed systems, and freeing up that software development time to learn. Some of that skill translated over to the digital platform side, using various tools within learning some Office 365, providing some training within the Office 365 tool suite, the Mintex workflow platform, other platforms that we've leveraged internally have helped, our software developers have been able to develop their skills in that through training provided, just focusing their efforts and time on that. They've really picked up on it quickly, as I think some of these platforms are made, some of them are easier to learn than more complicated ones, obviously. So we've been able to pick up that. But do we have a gap? Yes, we have a gap. And have we had to reach outside to get assistance for helping with certain projects? Yes, we definitely have to leverage some professional services type contracts to get that done, to make this happen as we go through. But I believe our benefit is we start getting some of these things more digital and managing them through these various platforms that we have. We're seeing the benefit that our staff is having more time to spend on this versus the time they were having to spend trying to develop all this in-house software. So these tools are really helping us. But training is key, having the budget to train and making, that's also driven from leadership, getting that budget and having them understand we need that for training of staff, because hiring and going through that process is something that we're not very good at personally as an organization. I think we have a lot of improvement in that space, but using existing staff, leveraging their skills in other areas has been key for us. It's been a challenge, but it's been working out.
Yeah. We've got some questions that have come in from the audience, but I'm going to ask one more question of Whitney here, because I'm a big fan at preparing the public for whatever government is going to throw out there from a digital experience. And so I'm interested what promotion and education were needed to successfully launch myJacksonCounty, and how are you going to continue to have that outreach to your constituency?
That's a great question. Yeah, with any change, there's going to be pushback and resistance, and this was no different than anything else. So we certainly did have folks that were just generally resistant to change because we'd had the same website for forever that people were used to. So there was some pushback, but we did a lot of things to help educate our own staff and educate the public. We had really robust explanations and tutorials and videos on our website and on the help page through Pay It to make sure that any questions folks had would be answered, and that they could go to our website and click and see exactly how to walk through the app or the online payment process. During the launch phase, I did trainings for the legislative staff and the executive staff and our staff to make sure that anyone who might be taking constituent calls was well versed in how it worked. We also did a Facebook Live with the county executive where I actually got on and paid my own taxes, if I remember correctly, and showed just how quick and easy it was to do. We did a local media day where we did several different interviews before we launched with local media to explain the details of the new process and how simple it was to download and get on and pay and access your receipt. And then as far as ongoing education and promotion, one of the great things about Pay It is that they do provide free marketing, and they provide social media assets that you can share on any of your social media platforms. They've provided, as I said, videos of showing exactly how to do it on a phone. They've provided all sorts of FAQ answers, things like that, press releases, signage, t-shirts. So they've provided all sorts of tools for us to be able to do what we need to do to remind the public that there's a quick and easy way they can get online and pay their taxes without having to come in person.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm going to backtrack here on a couple of things that the audience was asking questions about. Whitney, you talk about, obviously, you had to get legislative approval for this. One of the questions that came in was, who ultimately paid for the project?
So, fill in where I miss here, Michael, but the first year, the fees were all attributed to the taxpayers. So there's a $2 transaction fee and then a percentage fee for credit cards and a small fee for ACH payments. So I don't believe that there was a cost to the county that first year. No. Is that correct, Michael?
You are correct.
Those fees were all covered by taxpayers. starting with the 2020 and 2021 year, due to COVID, we really wanted to incentivize taxpayers to take advantage of this process. So the county has covered the transaction fee and the ACH fees for the taxpayers. If a taxpayer chooses to utilize a credit card, they do still have to pay that percentage fee for the credit card use. But if they use an e-check, then the county has covered those fees.
Yeah. And I got a question here from a city asking about that they're actively looking for a system and would love to know not only that you use Pay It for these services, but also if there was any additional services that and products that you combine to provide these services to include invoice billing and payment management.
So
have you guys expanded it into that world?
So as far as using Pay It, we've got some ideas. We've had some ideas in other areas and departments in Public Works, within the counselor's office. Right now, we're working actively with Pay It on a payment processing module for our Sunshine request process. We're going to a new vendor tool for that. So we get often, as everyone else, requested information from citizens, from anyone requesting information. We're streamlining that. We're making that a more online experience from end to end with built-in workflows within our organization, and then tying Pay It to it from a payment. So when we do the work, we sometimes do charge for that, and be able to direct them to the myJacksonCounty to make those payments. But we're looking at other opportunities where we can to leverage any sort of citizen-facing service that we need. If it can fit into this platform, we're definitely examining all those. One of the challenges, I guess I'll say, is getting some of these departments to understand how that benefits. Some just aren't on board 100% yet and don't see how it can fit. But we're having more and more discussions about that, and I think they're seeing that, especially since the COVID hit and they were struggling during that time to provide these services.
Yeah, I'd like to, because we'd really be remiss. There's one topic I want to talk about before we're going to have to close out the session today, and that is on data and payment security. I mean, that's really important to the public, right? I mean, with all the stuff we read in the news, et cetera, the public is very sensitive to that, as are leaders and government in general. So, what government and citizen security concerns, you guys felt had to be addressed?
From a security perspective, we had to make sure that whatever payment processing that takes place doesn't take place on our systems, doesn't take place on or stored anywhere. So PCI compliance, meeting all the compliance. I mean, we have strict compliance that we have to adhere to for other areas of the county. So security is obviously foremost in the front of everything, decision making that we do. But yeah, just making sure that we're maintaining that. We have checks and balances in place to make sure that that we're adhering to those security requirements. And so that's